Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Davis Mattek. See that up in the corner, I just got kicked live for this little AMA thing for Slurv.com. We're here to talk mostly about seasonal fantasy football, I think, as there isn't a whole lot of DFS stuff going on. But yeah, pretty hyped to come here and talk to you guys. And when I get some questions, we'll bang them out. I mean, who doesn't love to talk about themselves, right? Want to talk a little bit about Jared Cook, huh? Well, Jared Cook is definitely one of those guys who's burned me in the past, like 100 times. Definitely thought Jared Cook was good back in the day. Um, I'll take Jeff Janis over Jared Cook for sure, though. I was actually just doing the Scott Fishbowl draft, and I took Jeff Janis, I believe, in the 17th round. That's a little bit of a wonky format. You get points per carry, and you also get it's a two quarterback league, super flex. You don't have to take two quarterbacks. Generally, though, I'm taking guys like Janis, sort of the sleeper wide receivers. Mike Wallace would be another one, sort of in the 12th round. 12th, 13th round is when I start looking for Janis because I am a zero RB guy. Although Zeke Elliott and David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell, I will take in the first round. If I get, sort of a pick in the middle of that first round, I'm taking David Johnson. In fact, I did a mock for RotoWire, and I drew the first overall pick in that one, and I took David Johnson 101. A little bit of a branding play there, as David Johnson is totally my boy. It's actually another accidental branding play. I took Theo Riddick, auto drafted him 3 times in that draft because I kept asking Pat to undo it because I was trying to watch a soccer game while I was doing it, and so now in every mock draft I do, just to torture Pat, I take Theo Riddick like every time now. Like I had like we did another one for Roto World, and I took Theoretic in the 10th round again, just so that like every mock draft I'm very consistent with the Theoretic love. Not that I even really think all that much of him as a player, but it helps to be consistent with the brand I found. And I mean, there's totally some upside for him there. Like uh like Theoretic can totally have 50 receptions. And I mean, it's not like anyone thinks that Theoretic is gonna, finish the season as a running back one. But Amir Abdullah, he's a grinder. I would give him like an Alfred Morris type comp. He's going to be really good first, second down, goal line back, but I don't really think he has the long speed to be a third down back at all. So I had to talk myself into the Theo Riddick thing, but I'm definitely feeling it. Although I saw this really good RotoViz article the other day about Chris Thompson, who really has the same sort of upside for Washington. They only have, grinding sort of running backs. They have Matt Jones. They drafted Keith Marshall as well, but that is not a stocked backfield. And Chris Thompson suffered a leg injury when he was in his last year at Florida State, but basically he probably ran like a 4.3 flat 40, and he's a really underrated athlete, and he's done very well in pieces in the preseason. So I actually kind of like the idea of getting on Chris Thompson late, especially if you're not doing a zero RB type strategy, or even if you are. But he would definitely be like a really good fourth running back for a zero RB team. And if you're doing my friend Anthony Amico, who writes for fantasyinsiders.com, he sort of coined this term, the robust running back theorem. And the idea is basically you kind of go back to the old days of fantasy football. See, now that the market is really overcorrecting, so if you do these expert drafts now, what you'll see is people are just not taking running backs. They're just going in on these wide receivers basically at every possible period. And that really does leave a lot of value. If you look at the overall ADP, a guy like Jamal Charles, 5 years ago, even coming off the ACL, still would have been a top 5 pick. Devonta Freeman would have been a top 5 pick. People would be in on Doug Martin. If you go through the running back ADP, it's not even really that hard to talk yourself in to these guys. LaShawn McCoy on fantasypros.com, if you look at his cumulative ADP, is RB12. I mean, it's not even 2 years ago we were talking about LaShawn McCoy as a top 5 pick in fantasy. Thomas Rawls is a guy I absolutely love. Rawls is injured, and that's really the only reason that people aren't talking themselves into him. But I think what they want to do with Procise is they want to use him as sort of, I don't want to say a Percy Harvin type role, but I definitely do think that there is some. They want to use him and Rawls on the field at the same time. I think that is ideally what Pete Carroll would like to do, because they don't have Marshawn Lynch anymore. Thomas Rawls is good. He's not Marshawn Lynch. And so they're going to use these backs in a complementary way. And I'm expecting Rawls to be healthy. There was a beat writer report about 2 weeks ago. If you go look, if you just Google Thomas Rawls, I have a Thomas Rawls Google News alert because I'm pretty heavily invested in him for seasonal this year. So yeah, he's been running, he's been cutting. Like I think he's going to be good to go. Seeing a question here about Ryan Fitzpatrick, and that's a pretty interesting one, right? Like what even really is the difference between Geno Smith and Ryan Fitzpatrick? My friend Justice Moscudesca, you can find on Twitter. You can at Jumosk tweeted a bunch of Geno Smith gifs today, and if you go and watch Geno, he's not a bad quarterback, right? Like this is not Ryan Lindley-esque type stuff. Geno, if the Jets just go into the season with Geno, I don't have a negative prediction for the Jets offense based on that. I think Fitzpatrick is definitely a little bit better, but the Jets offense as a whole, I think is still going to be good, right? Matt Forte, good signing, even if he only has 1 year left of juice left in his legs. Jason Morrow was my number 1 tight end in 2015 when he came out of school. Really excited to see what he does after the injury in his rookie year. And I mean, Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. I mean, Eric Decker's a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. It doesn't matter who his quarterback is. And Brandon Marshall is incredible too, even despite losing a lot of his long speed. So Fitzpatrick, if he signs, if you're doing these MFL drafts right now, I think he's an excellent, 21st round, third QB type pick, because I think he probably will sign eventually. But the Jets offense as a whole, my projections for them are not really going to change based on if it's Fitzpatrick or Geno quarterback. Is Tom Brady worth the investment? I mean, even if Brady wasn't suspended for 4 games, I'm probably not taking him regardless at all. Someone in the chat talking about Brandon Marshall. I mean, yeah. So right now, Brandon Marshall is going is the 10th wide receiver. Okay, that's definitely rich. Like, I definitely want Mike Evans over him. I think I probably want Brandon Cooks over him and Demaryius Thomas over him as well. But sort of that high-end wide receiver 2 range, that's where I want to be at with Brandon Marshall. I still think he's good. He was still good at red zone conversion last year. Now, I mean, he wasn't as good as Eric Decker, but was definitely still talented at that aspect of football. I think, yeah, I actually think the Jets offense is sort of one of those scenarios where, what's the phrase? Buying while there's blood in the streets. Like people being afraid of the Jets offense based off of what they think the difference between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Geno is. I don't see that big of a difference. Like I don't really know where the myth that Ryan Fitzpatrick was this amazing NFL quarterback came from. Right? Like he has a losing record for his career. He's like a 40% win rate type guy, maybe 45%. I know I've talked about this on a podcast before. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but yeah, he's just not really great. And Geno, people forget this. For a long time, Geno was hyped up to be, a first round quarterback, a franchise savior type guy. And he never really has had a chance to prove either way, whether that is or is not the case, I think. And if I was running the Jets, I would just go in on Geno this year. Like, what your ceiling is with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And for fantasy, right, Mike, you're totally right. Like, for fantasy, Ryan Fitzpatrick is always free. He's just always super cheap, and his teams are always bad because he turns the ball over and is not really great at, third down conversions or things that other winning quarterbacks are good at. But for fantasy, he's awesome because he's going to throw 35 times a game. And especially with the Jets, with those wide receivers, like, he's awesome. I'm drinking out of my my gallon of water there. That's part of this fitness routine that I'm trying to do. Didn't work out today. I'm moving right now, so my room is just sort of strewn right now. I have clothes and shoes and boxes and stuff that I'm packing up. I move in like 2 days, so I'm squeezing this in. Yeah, for fantasy, like, yeah, I think so. Part of the reason I'm drifting away from zero RB, at least with that first pick, is if you just have that one elite running back, and normally there are only about 5 of them in fantasy at any given time, just the way it shakes out, because, guys get injured. Last year Charles was elite, got injured. Le'Veon was elite, got injured. And so that's just going to rotate a lot. And I think if you nail that first pick, whether it be Le'Veon this year if he stays healthy, or Jamal if he stays healthy this year, or DJ. I mean, I'm expecting DJ to be awesome. I just think that's such, fantasy is a week-to-week game. That's always what Matthew Berry says, and he's really right. Like, for seasonal, if you just have the one guy who just crushes week in and week out, like, that just gives you a huge leg up. And so I guess my general strategy this year has been to hopefully take one of the guys I want in the first round. And I think, Eric, you make a good point. I think that it is sort of gone a little bit too far. Like, I can't really imagine taking DeAndre Hopkins over Ezekiel Elliott, right? Like, why? What is Hopkins' ceiling in that offense? It's not even close to what Elliott's is, and he's actually at a more scarce position. Like, running back is a more scarce position than wide receiver now, with how often teams are throwing. Like, there's more value in having an elite running back. There's just not so much attrition at the position because wide receivers don't get injured quite as often. You guys like this mic though? This mic is awesome. Compliments of old David Kitchen, Soccer Dave, Fantasy Insiders. You gotta upgrade for the fancy mic when you make a living doing media off and on. That's like the top move. For a long time, I was doing podcasts with these old Logitech headphones, and I mean, Logitech is they're okay. They're like fine, but this is like, although there was a period when I first got this mic when I was talking way too close into it like this, because I thought that was how it was supposed to be used. Like, oh, like you have to get really close to it so I've audio coming out of my laptop and you can't hear it coming into the microphone. So I thought, oh, you have to be really close to it. And so the first couple of podcasts I did, I was like, man, I sound really muffled. I wonder what I'm doing wrong with the settings. And it turns out I was just speaking way too close to it. Eric, though, the move, I'm telling you, if you want to be thrifty, the Logitech headset, it's awesome. And you can also use it multi-purpose. You can just throw it in your PlayStation controller and you can use it while you play video games online. I assume most of you guys are probably into playing like FIFA and Madden and stuff. And there's nothing more infuriating than like, these little 12-year-olds you're playing in FIFA scoring a goal on you, and they're just talking a bunch of shit to you. and you can't talk back. So that was like the main impetus between buying the headset. But they ended up working. They had a professional purpose as well. Turns out if you talk a lot, your mouth ends up drying out a little bit. Also, this Copenhagen addiction doesn't help with drying the old mouth out. And Steve, yeah, you're totally right. Absolutely anything I can write off for taxes, I'll do. True story. Was in San Diego last year for the DraftKings NFL final. And after the event got done, it's Sunday night in San Diego, and a bunch of the old guys, they went off to bed. And a group of us, we were down in the hotel bar probably about midnight or so, and we're like, yeah, let's go to the strip club. And we ended up going to the strip club, and the money I spent there I wrote off as like networking, like a business expense. So my accountant, like, he was like, no, dude, that totally works. That is a legitimate expense. Like, you can prove that you were there professionally, like with people that you work in your field. And so that was pretty awesome. That was like that was a little victorious little moment, and a way to save some money. So that's a pro tip there. You can, as long as you're with people that you work with, you can write stuff like that off on your taxes. Just the tip. A lower level QB that I think can make some noise. Well, see, I guess I would have said Blake Bortles last year, but that doesn't really count. I think Jameis Winston is going too low. Jameis Winston right now is going off at quarterback 16. He's got a little bit of running upside, at least around the goal line. He's throwing to Mike Evans. He's throwing to Vincent Jackson, and he's throwing to Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He has a really good pass-catching running back in Charles Sims, and even Doug Martin. Really, like, Doug Martin at Boise State was a great pass-catching running back. Like, his career has kind of gone by the wayside since then. Tyrod, yes. Tyrod for sure. Tyrod can run. Tyrod can, he's going to throw those deep passes to Sammy. I guess my main issue with the Bills as a whole is they're not really built around being explosive. They're not built to score a lot of points, because outside of Sammy, they have this aging running back in LaShawn McCoy who's like, he's fine. He's not like bad or anything, but they're not built around scoring a lot of points. Like, just in general, the Bills, they're not going to outscore you. Their defense was terrible last season, but their personnel is not terrible. And I guess really that was just sort of a function of Rex Ryan, I guess. I mean, I guess sort of a weak spot in my fantasy analysis would be determining the causes of certain things on defense, like figuring out why a defense is giving up so many yards outside of like, well, they're just really bad. Like, I can tell you that the Buffalo Bills defense was really bad last year. I guess one reason for it would be that Rex is really blitz heavy on defense. And if you don't quite have the personnel to match up with just how often you want to blitz, things can get pretty tough. They gave up a lot of deep stuff last year, despite having good corners. Like, I don't think the Buffalo Bills have bad corners at all. They have Leotis McKelvin. I'm looking up the whole group of them right now. Oh, Stephen Gilmore and even Nickel Roby, like all of those guys like have had really good years. Like, if you just go by like PFF grading, I'm all on board with all that. But yeah, the Bills defense just ended up being pretty bad last year holistically. I don't know if any of you guys are playing MLB Daily Fantasy tonight. I assume some of you are, but I took Francisco Liriano, and so every inning that goes by where he is not giving up like 4 home runs is like is really good. That's my main sweat tonight. Also assume some of you guys are playing PGA. I hope you didn't get bit by John Rahm. Not by John Rahm. John Rahm is awesome. But Charlie Hoffman, Hoffman withdrew right away. Yeah, all the Rahm all the Rom this week. I took him in my one and done. I bet him outright to win. Took him on 100% of my DK teams, but yeah, just super brutal with the Charlie Hoffman withdrawal. And I wasn't even gonna play him, but I was talking to one of my buddies who noted that he had like a really good course history here, and it's really, so Hoffman only has good course history in Texas, really. But this course, Glen Abbey, happens to suit his eye pretty well. So I'm feeling cheated, honestly. PGA DFS, my stars or scrubs or balance. I would say it depends on the week, but in general, I tend to go stars and scrubs because I just jam Jason Day in every week. Like, Jason Day is just the best. Like, I just love to play that guy because even when he's bad, he's still like not really that bad. Like, he's still gonna make some birdies. He's probably never missing the cut, like just so very rarely. Balance lineups, like you have to roster guys like Furyk and Matt Kuchar, and yeah, hate doing that. Todd Gurley question. So that's a really good one because I have yet to draft Todd Gurley yet. So depending on where you're drafting, it kind of depends if he goes as the second or the third running back, and CBS actually has him as the first. But I definitely like Le'Veon over him. I definitely like David Johnson over him. And I think I like Ezekiel Elliott over him because if you just look at the situation, so you just look at the quarterback and you look at the coach and you look at the surrounding offensive parts, you're going to project Dallas to score way more points than the Los Angeles Rams. It's weird. It's the first time I've done a podcast where I've had to think about whether or not the Rams are in St. Louis or Los Angeles, but they are from LA now, which is really weird. But yeah, Gurley, I don't see it. You know, he's gonna probably get 250 touches, you think, or 250 carries maybe. But I mean, the most amount of touchdowns that you could think for him would be like 8. And he could have some long touchdown runs, right? Like I don't God, 8 still feels like a lot though. Like, how many touchdowns are the Rams even going to score as an offense? Like, they have the ability to score less than 25 touchdowns for a year. Like, that's crazy. Parker, how do I think NFL DFS will be different? I think the prize pools are going to be down. I think as a result of the New York stuff, I think the prize pools are going to be down a little bit. Scoring changes. I would love if FanDuel would take away the kicker. A cool format that I really wish was available, and Draft Street used to have this, was the 2 quarterback format, because I loved the like you could take like Breeze and Cooks and Peyton Manning and Demaryius Thomas. You could have like the double stack going, and it made sweating on Sundays like more fun. Yeah, so I think New York is going to be back, but so I think the New York thing really just halted the growth and limited, I think, overall the growth potential for DFS, because I don't think we're going to see investing and spending in the space like that for a long time, maybe like 5 years. Because if you remember, before the Ethan Haskell thing and before New York, DraftKings and FanDuel were everywhere. They were on every TV show you watched. They were just absolutely everywhere. Like you really couldn't get around it. And I know it's just not going to be like that anymore. And it sucks. It sucks that that's the case. But a lot like online poker, once the first sort of hit came in, everyone in the market just became so much more cautious. And I think that's what we're seeing with daily fantasy is, all these investors, they're much more cautious. ESPN and CBS and Yahoo, they all distance themselves from, a really heavy daily fantasy product, both in content and offering games. Like, I think, so it was always my thing that eventually ESPN was going to offer daily fantasy games. And I think the New York thing and the Ethan Haskell thing stopped it from happening. What are my goals for the NFL DFS season? I mean, realistically, I would love to win the Millie Maker or take down, the what do they call it? I don't even know what they call the 25 for football. on FanDuel. But yeah, I mean, that would be awesome. I would like to post the Sunday Million. You're right, Eric. Yeah. Winning that would be sick. I had a good year last year, in terms of, like win rate, but, I went all in week one. I didn't go all in. I played really, really heavy week one last year and did not win. So I spent like the first 2 months of the season just digging myself out of that hole. So by the end of the year, even though I'd sort of had a good year, I'd had more winning weeks than losing weeks. I think I was only up. God, it couldn't have been probably only, a couple $1,000 as opposed to, as what could have been. Who hurt me week one? Let's go look. NFL week one of 2015. I want to go look at these games and see who hurt me. Well, I don't even remember who I rostered. It couldn't have been any good. Just looking at these results, I probably had some running back who got hurt. Like I probably rostered like Doug Martin against the Titans or something, and he just sucked. Oh no, nope. I absolutely know who it was. It was Sam Bradford and Jordan Matthews, and that. Oh, now I remember. Eric, you have me tilting now. Jordan Matthews scored a touchdown on like the last drive, but it got called back. It got called back on like the worst penalty ever, and that like swung everything for me. Oh, why did you remind me of that? That was terrible. That was like the worst thing that's ever happened. That was like the most gigantic DFS swing of my life. Oh, that was really painful. So NFL DFS is funny because you have a whole week to ruminate on what just happened to you. I stacked the White Sox tonight, and if the White Sox suck against Mike Pelfrey, like I'll just get a wake up tomorrow and do it again, and like stack someone else or make a different team, and that'll be that. But in football, you just have to think. You just have to sit there, and also you play way more in NFL, right? Like your volume of games played is just so much more because you only get 16 or 17 chances to do it. So it was brutal. What do I think of the Cardinals this year? Well, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year. I think some pretty natural regression is going to come there. I don't think they win the division. I think they could definitely make the conference championship again. I don't know. How much faith can you reasonably put in Carson Palmer? Like I can't put that much faith in Carson Palmer. He's still Carson Palmer. Steve. Week one strategy. Well, okay. So the thing about week one strategy is you should play it like every other week. Like, you should just buy into your normal contest. You should play your normal amount of head-to-heads. But I've never been able to help myself week one. Like the last 3 years, I've just like jammed it in week one. Like played way more than I thought, registered for way more contests. I'm like, oh, these 3 men are so fishy. I have to register them. Oh, all these head-to-head sold, I might as well sell more since the action's so good. And it turns out, like, if you do that and you have a winning week, it's really awesome. If you do that and you have a losing week, you're going to spend the next 2 months playing catch-up, which is what I did this last season, thanks to Jordan Matthews, who I still love. Still love J-Matt, even though, God, he cost me a lot of money last year. Cost me a lot of money. What percentage of entries do I play in cash games versus GPPs? It sort of depends on the week. Like I think some weeks sort of naturally set themselves up where like there's a cash team for me to play, and I'm like, okay, like I'm just gonna do this, which would be like 90% of my entries. But I also feel like I know the most about the NFL relative to the field, right? Like whereas in like baseball and in basketball and golf, like I feel like my knowledge is more average relative to the field, but I'm just like a good DFS. Like I kind of understand lineup construction, so I can still be profitable. So in football, I'm more likely to play a heavier volume in tournaments. Like I might play 80-20 with a bunch of different lineups. In NFL, like the easiest thing about NFL is you can select a core group of like running backs and like maybe like 4 tight ends and like 8 wide receivers, and then you can just make a bunch of stacks, right? Like you make the Torrey Smith, Colin Kaepernick stack, or the Joe Flacco, Mike Wallace stack, or the best one is the Blake Bortles, Allen Robinson stack. Probably my most used stack of like all time. It's just the absolute best. I love it. And that's one. I actually think that is going to be a little bit more contrarian this year, because I think the Bortles Arab stack is going to be expensive on both sides this year. Like they got up there last year, but it wasn't to like the level that I think it's going to be this year. Like I think Bortles is going to be like 8.5K on FanDuel, and A-Rob will be like 9K. I think like you're gonna have to pay for these guys this year, which has its positives, right, in terms of ownership percentage, and its negatives, which is, it's a lot harder to stomach those guys in cash. Like I had like Bortles in cash a lot last year, and you'd be tilting him in the first half, and the second half would come, and you're like, oh, he's just gonna goat it like he always does. He was the second half Bortles was awesome. Phillip Rivers, nah, I'm very down on the Chargers in general. I don't think they're a good football team. I think they're going to be pretty bad. I missed a Keenan Allen question earlier. I think he's going right in about the same range, but if given the choice between the two, like I'm going to take Mike Evans every time between the two, just because I think his touchdown upside is a lot higher. And that's my thing with the Chargers. Like I just don't think they're, as an offense, they're going to be all that productive in general. Okay, so Duke Johnson, I know is he's a favorite of my buddy JJ Zacharyson at Late Round QB, who works for Number Fire. I really don't have a good feel on him, and I talked about this on a podcast with my friend Michael Salfino, who works for Yahoo. I mean, do any of us really have any idea what the Browns' offense is going to look like? I don't think we do, because I think it's all based on creating an accurate projection on what Robert Griffin is going to be. And I don't think any of us know how good Robert Griffin can be outside of the environment that we've seen him in the last, I guess he didn't play it all last year. So the last 3 seasons, he looked like a god one year and then was just awful the next 2. And he was just bad. And if he's bad again, you're not going to want Duke Johnson, because it's all tied up in pass catching. And if they're not scoring points, if they're not sustaining drives, he's not going to catch any passes. He's not going to score any touchdowns. I like him where he's going right now, but Duke Johnson, actually, this is a true story. If you go look at Fantasy Pros and look at all of the rankings that they have accumulated, you will see that he has the widest ranking, the widest gap in where he is ranked by experts, both at his position and overall, because no one really knows what they're going to do. No one really knows what the Browns are going to look like. The New York Jets overall, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but yeah, I just think they're going to be good. I just think the Jets are going to be like, I would, if someone would give me the right odds, and I'm actually going to go look at that right now. New York Jets odds. I would like them to win the division. Like I think that's a good bet. Good bet. Okay. All in on Decker. Yeah, like that's obvious. Going as wide receiver 25, I just don't know. I just don't know how you don't take him. So the Jets are currently basically 4.5 to 1 to win the division. That strikes me as a pretty good bet. I mean, the Patriots just win the AFC East every year. But yeah, I think I kind of like that bet. It is a contract year for Alshon, I believe. No, they re-signed him. They paid him already, actually, because that was sort of a big deal last year. I think the range that Alshon is going is right. My concern just comes to if the Bears remain effective offensively. There will be good Alshon games, and he's going to see a ton of targets. But I guess if he's so effective per target That yeah, because if he gets like 180 targets, he's going to be a top 10 wide receiver. So Alshon might actually be ranked a little low, honestly. That's entirely possible. I'm actually gonna go. I'm actually gonna go make this bet on the Jets right now before I forget, just because I think it's sort of an interesting value. Also, season long NFL bets, and season long NBA bets. The prices are just so soft, right? Like you can just get really good prices. Like I remember 2 years ago that I got a price like it was like the Lakers under 35 minus 140, which is just like someone giving you free money. Like you can get really good prices like that, and it's pretty good. Thoughts on the NFC Central? I mean, I think the Packers just win it again. I don't think the Lions or the Bears are good teams, and I don't trust the Vikings to win like any games, like any big games, I guess, right? Like Teddy is good, but they just don't score enough points overall. And like that's like my number one thing in like projections is you have to look at teams that can score a lot of points, because if you score a lot of points, you're going to win games. I do like Diggs though. That's a good one. I am pretty into Stefan Diggs. He was so long history with Stefan Diggs. He was the number one wide receiver in his recruiting class coming out of high school. Used to roster him like all the time in college football daily fantasy when he played at Maryland. And I believe out of all the ranks I've seen, I was the highest on Stefan Diggs in the wide receiver class when he came out last year. He was well inside my top 10, and I really like him as a player. He's just very dynamic. Um, and he fits better with Teddy than Treadwell does. Eric, you bring up a good point. People are kind of forgetting about Diggs, and they are giving Treadwell all of this love, but Treadwell is kind of a bad ball receiver, and Teddy doesn't really throw bad balls because his intellect won't really let him. He doesn't really like to just toss it up there, and that's kind of why Charles Johnson fell out of favor. Like I think Treadwell and Charles Johnson are similar type players, you know, and yeah, Diggs just fits with Teddy. He's running 8-yard outs. He's running 6-yard slant routes, and he can run a good 9 route too. You know, if they trail and if they need it, and he's also pretty good in the red zone for a small guy. So yeah, actually, people have totally forgotten about Diggs. The Broncos, I'm all the way out on the Broncos. I think anyone but them is a good bet to win that division. That would be that would, defense totally matters, but in today's NFL, it's more important to have an offense that can score a bunch of points than to have a defense that can stop a bunch of points, because I think offensive performance is more repeatable. And I think defensive dominance, especially when it comes to generating turnovers and generating turnovers that lead to points, which the Broncos did a lot. Like the Broncos just ran so hot last year. And I don't think they're going to run that hot again, basically. Growing this mustache right now. Keep getting little things caught. You probably can't see it at all because I have my background all lit, and I only grow blonde facial hair. It's really the plight. It's really the plight of me. Uh, Tampa. Oh, nah, Tampa just sucks. Like, although that division outside of Carolina is just super weak. But Dirk Cutter, not a good coach. Like almost definitively not a good coach. I think he's a good offensive coach, but he just doesn't really seem to be able to put it all together. Now, Jacksonville, I am on. I think Jacksonville is going to be good this year. Bengals backfield. So for seasonal, I think I'm mostly avoiding because I mean, Hill was terrible last year, but he clearly has a role in the NFL. And I think Gio Bernard clearly has a role in the NFL. But for DFS, those are two guys, like if you can read the game script right, like if you can be like, okay, this is like, Cincinnati is favored by 8.5 points. And when Cincinnati is favored by 8.5 points, Jeremy Hill averages X amount of carries. Like that's a spot that I really like. Ivory over Yeldon. So I've done probably 10 drafts thus far, and I have not taken Ivory or Yeldon in either one of them. I've fallen victim to this before because I loved TJ Yeldon the year that he signed in Jacksonville, or not TJ Yeldon, the white guy. What is his name? Stanford. He was amazing. Backup Gerhardt, Toby Gerhardt. Yeah, I loved Toby Gerhardt. And there's probably some embarrassing RotoViz articles that people could dig up if they were so inclined. But yeah, I just don't want to deal with either one of them. The biggest thing is that Jacksonville does not run in the red zone at all. Like one of the lowest rates of anyone in football. And when you look at what their offense does, it totally makes sense why they wouldn't do that. Like, why would you run if you have Allen Robinson, Allen Hurns, and Julius Thomas? Because those guys are going to be more effective than anyone else that you could possibly run at the goal line. So, like, yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's totally possible that one of them could emerge. Like Jacksonville could score a lot of points. Jacksonville could be like a top 10 team in points scored. And if that's the case, then whoever does end up, with more touches there could be valuable. I don't know. The presence of Denard Robinson totally matters though, because he takes away a lot of the upside there. Jamal Charles, viable? Yeah, totally. Like, I know this is his second major knee injury, but I'm pretty confident that Charles. Well, we've already seen him come back from a knee injury once, and I haven't read anything to suggest that he's having a hard time with recovery, or that he's not on schedule to contribute again. So I think that I think I've drafted Charles. The fact that you can get him in the second round is crazy, right? Because he's still Jamal Charles. He's still gonna be insanely effective per touch. He doesn't even need all the running back touches. He had the second most touches on his team one year, finished as the third running back in fantasy, and broke the NFL record for yards per carry. He's almost a little bit more effective if he's not the main guy. Yeah. I love Sharkandrick West though, like where you get him in drafts, because I think a split is actually the best case scenario. Like if KC had anyone other than Alex Smith as their quarterback, they would be so scary good, right? Like they have Jeremy Maclin, really good. They have Travis Kelce, incredible. Jamal Charles, great. Sharkandrick West, awesome complimentary back. Spencer Ware, great goal line hammer back. Chris Conley, talented. Albert Wilson, super talented. They have a bunch of these like guys who are like almost sort of like kind of metric darlings, which makes me wonder, about the potential analytics department that they have going on there. Like I think that it's almost sort of kind of likely that they do have a pretty strong analytics department there in Kansas City, especially if they took Chris Conley, who was like the metrics god at the combine. Like if they had some sort of exciting quarterback, a quarterback who would throw down the field, they could have this awesome sort of offense. Like they would be amazing. Houston. Whew, I hate that contract they gave Osweiler. Hate it. Think that was just real. Like I don't think Osweiler demonstrated anything to suggest that he deserved that contract. And I know that you have to make that move. Like you have to get a quarterback. You're never gonna. Well, Denver just did it last year, but 90% of the time, you're never winning a Super Bowl with a mediocre quarterback, which is unfortunately what I think Osweiler is. But they do have this really good defense, and they were able to win some games last year with worse quarterbacks. I don't know. That division, the AFC South, not a great division, especially, Luck is suffering all of these injuries. Like, yeah, I don't know. Houston could win the division. If Luck gets injured, they're probably the favorites. I don't know. Well, no, that wouldn't be the case. Jacksonville would be. Ooh, I wonder what Jacksonville is to win the division. I might go make that bet too. Is Lamar Miller worth his ADP? I think there's a decent chance he reaches his projection, but I'm not going to take the risk, right? Because the floor is like what we saw in Miami, which is him just not getting used. I think Lamar Miller is super talented, but I don't even like Devontae Freeman, and I think you pretty clearly have to take Devontae Freeman over him. I think you have to take Charles over him. I think Lacey and Martin and Ingram and McCoy and Forte all have higher floors. But Miller probably has a ceiling of 250 carries, 60 receptions, 50 receptions, probably, if we're going to a ceiling, and 14 total touchdowns. Like he could absolutely smash if they use him as much as they're suggesting. Will Dez go back to being a monster? Yeah, totally. I saw a great stat on Dez the other day that he leads all non-touchdowns in touchdown, or he leads all non-tight ends in touchdown conversion over the last, I think, 10 seasons, right? No one can take that guy down. He's just too good. I think Dallas in general, I mean, this is the year for them. If they're going to do it, Romo probably has this year and next year to still be passable. And even then, maybe next year's is asking a little bit too much. They have a bunch of really interesting pieces. Witten is sort of being phased out, but they drafted Elliott. They kind of, I don't think it was the best decision on earth to take Elliott, but I would have much preferred Jalen Ramsey. But they took Elliott, so they have their running back, they have Dez, they have Terrence Williams, they have Cole Beasley in the slot, they have Gavin Escobar, and they have this kid Andy Jones, who I bet a lot of people probably have not heard of. But this Jones guy, he went to a very small school. I don't remember if it was Division III or Division II, like Jacksonville State. And he's just this sort of metrics darling, and he's currently on the practice squad. But I think that he could make the roster, and he would be a really interesting ad. What's really frustrating to me as a Cowboys fan is that Andre Holmes was on the roster, and Andre Holmes is a productive player, right? He's good. He scored, I think, 4 touchdowns last year for the Raiders, and Andre Holmes is he's like a facsimile Dez Bryant. He can play sort of the same. He can play the X. He can play the Y. He can play both sides. And he demands a safety over the top in the end zone. And I think he could have, given some help to that offense that they really desperately needed. But, it's, I don't know. It's just one of those things. Dallas is frustrating. Let's see what else we have here. Who takes Alfred Morris? Yeah, well, so the problem is Alfred Morris doesn't have a complementary skill set to Elliott at all. The things that Morris does well are the things that Elliott does even better. So I just don't see him. I just don't see him playing. I think Alf is a straight bench warmer, unfortunately. Like I would have been fine with Alf and McFadden, as the running back for Dallas. Atlanta's terrible. They're not going to be competitive at all. Their defense gets like no pressure. The Saints offense. So Breeze is going. He's going. Let's see. Overall, I'm trying to figure this out because I know he's like the 7th quarterback. So he's going in like the 5th round, 6th round, right around there. It just seems a little rich, right? Like it just. I don't know, because the Saints are always so bad. They just don't win a lot of games. So I don't know. Their offense is going to be fun though. Their offense is going to be generally good. Yeah, I'm waiting on QB though. Like I don't think there's any reason to jump on these guys. Like Kirk Cousins, I like. Talked about Jameis earlier. Mariota, I really like. Tyrod, I really like. And I mean, even going super late, like you can gamble on a guy like Robert Griffin. You also, something I really like is you can take, and especially in deep leagues, you can take the Blaine Gabbert, Colin Kaepernick tandem. So sort of interesting that Chip Kelly leaves and we all of a sudden forget the thing that made us love Chip Kelly players in the first place, which was they still run a lot of plays. Like even last year they were bad. They still ran a lot of plays. I mean, Gabbert played well last year. Like he didn't not, I guess maybe not from like a real football sense, but he did okay for fantasy and he runs a little bit. So yeah, I kind of like, I think this year it's just really easy to wait on quarterback. Like you just don't really have to try that hard to do it. No, horrible call to draft Ezekiel Elliott. Like I was at a friend's house. We were all getting ready to go out in Kansas City to go to a concert, and we were watching the draft. And I was like, "This night is gonna be amazing. Gonna go see Future. Gonna get it lit. Like I'm so pumped. Right, we're gonna leave after the Dallas pick. We're gonna get Jalen Ramsey. I'm gonna go celebrate." And I see the tweet from, I guess Schefter's not the one who ruins the picks. Maybe it's Lock and Fora who does it, but someone retweeted it, and it was Elliott. And I was just like, well, all right, like I guess let's go. And I was not happy about it. Was not at all excited. Sort of trudged out of the house, all defeated like. And yeah, it's just Alfred Morris could have been good behind that line. Darren McFadden was good behind that line. You know, yeah, Future concert way less lit. I mean, now granted, it was still pretty lit. But could have been a legendary night. Like one of my good friends from growing up is a defensive backs coach, and one of the guys that he coached defensive backs with at Angelo State now works for Jacksonville, working with their defensive backs, and just says Ramsey's like beyond the real deal. He just like so ready to crush, like is already like running ahead of schedule, jumping. He said he reminds him of Sean Taylor, which like, okay, probably an exaggeration, but let's be real. Like Dallas not taking a safety when they desperately needed a safety really sucks. Or a cornerback, stick him wherever. Just make him a defensive back. Need him. Now, Byron Jones, I'm excited for. And I was really excited for when we drafted Mo Claiborne, but he ended up being really bad, like so bad. Brandon Carr was excited when they signed him. Turned out to be so very bad, so very not good at football, which was disappointing for sure. Oh, I see the Colorado Rockies have just started to already crush my soul. Carlos Gonzalez strikes out swinging. Trevor Story strikes out swinging. Shocked. Just the worst. I mean, Coors Field. So brutal. Do I think Eli's a good late round target? I think he's a great late round target. Probably my favorite stack in all of daily fantasy football is the Eli ODB stack, right? Like Eli ODB is so good because ODB, when you take him in a tournament, you're taking him for like the 200-yard, 2-touchdown upside. Like Eli cannot have a good game unless he is just peppering Beckham with targets. So you're getting the good game regardless. Like sometimes you could take like Breeze and Cooks or Romo and Bryant, and you could end up without a touchdown even in a good spot. But if you take that Eli ODB stack in a good spot, like it's paying off. Yeah, if you just pay that, you're gonna be good. Forte went from the Bears to the Jets. I like him. Like I think Forte still has some juice, and he's still gonna catch passes no matter what. Like Forte is always gonna catch passes because that's just what he does, and they're gonna need that skill set in New York for sure. Yeah, this night started off so good. Like Liriano, oh guys, Liriano has 12 Ks. Liriano has 12 Ks. If you all didn't play Liriano, you're so bummed out right now. I was hoping that by the time we got done with this show, like he would just be out of the game. Well, I just wanted him to be out of the game because like I don't want him to lose points. Like there's nowhere he can go but down from here. So yeah, taking Liriano, like just like let him be done. He got through 6 innings. Don't bring him back out. How many? Well, he's batting right now, so he's definitely coming back out. Good to know that we got there. Yeah, I just I've talked football for like football. I love it. I'm starting to fade a little bit. My voice. I actually used to do like a competitive speech in college. And so now I used to be really good at just talking, but now when I do podcasts, I just get to chill. I just get to chill and make fun of David Kitchen when I do it, so my throat muscles are not as strong. So Sterling Shepard, I cannot possibly be objective about Sterling Shepard. He was like my favorite in college. He went to OU, which is where sort of my whole family went. I went to Kansas State, sort of let the old tribe down, but big fan of OU football. And Sterling was just amazing. Like he just crushed every game. Although he was actually bad in the bowl game, the playoff game, not the bowl game, against Clemson. Like he let Mackenzie Alexander shut him down, and it kind of sucks that Mackenzie Alexander went so late. I guess it was probably a height thing with him, but I was really high on Mackenzie Alexander as a cornerback prospect. Is it worth it to go after Luck early on or just wait? Yeah, you just gotta wait. Like Luck, he just, I don't know. I don't like Andrew Luck. That's more of a personal peccadillo than anything else. But yeah, I'm just not really in on him. Oh man, Eli ODB Shepard against the Cowboys week 1. It's gonna be brutal. It's gonna be because I'm probably gonna take ODB in cash at least. What made me want to play Liriano tonight? Well, the Brewers do have good play discipline, but they also strike out more than anyone else in baseball. And I mean, tonight's slate was terrible. So that was why I did that. But yeah, no love lots for Andy Luck here. I mean, my thing with Luck is that people say he's like better than Aaron Rodgers or whatever, and he's just not. He just doesn't have the results to back it up. He turns the ball over too much, and he turns the ball over in like critical areas of the field, and he's just sort of painful to watch sometimes. And I don't really understand the love for him, I guess. Like Cam Newton is better than Luck. Although the Colts they're definitely favored to win the division, but that's just more sort of because I don't know. I might bet the Jaguars. Yeah, Tannehill and Luck are much more similar than anyone would lead you to believe. Luck runs a little bit more effectively, especially around the goal line. Like he's much better at it. No love for the Titans for me at all. They're like a horribly run franchise. But I think you guys got any more questions for me? I'm getting ready to bail. My voice box has given out on you guys. That was the cool thing about Luck though, Steve, was that he after all the running backs died, he could give you a little bit of a running floor, which was nice for sure. Bold prediction. Whew. Um, Des Bryant leads all players in touchdowns. So all skill position, all running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. Des Bryant scores the most touchdowns.